So let's get started with today's topic, waveform generators. Today Ray is going to give us a brief introduction to what they are and how to fix errors when you encounter them. Now let's hear from Ray.
Okay, let's begin. I want to talk today with you guys about the waveform generator errors that you possibly could get during a phantom load or manual load box control test. So let's get started. Let me go over a couple of things here. When we're saying waveform generator, what are we talking about? The PowerMaster analyzer is equipped with components that produce a voltage and current source that we call phantom load or manual load box control. The key components is the WFG, which is a waveform generator, which generates voltage and current. And then the WFA, waveform analyzer, measures the voltage and current. Now, what I'm talking about today is actually dealing with the PowerMaster series units that actually source voltage or current, mainly current. So when we're doing a phantom load test during this pre-test status check, you'll get this screen here that's displayed on the PowerMaster. And when you get this, what that's telling us is the WFG is producing a voltage and current during this course adjustment process. So once you see the second screen, what actually happens is we go from checking configurations to after we check when we're making a fine adjustment, then we'll go to starting the load box. But before that, the WFA is actually measuring and analyzing the voltage and current during the fine adjustments. So after this process, of course, you'll get us starting the load box if we don't get a waveform generator error. No signal RMS faults IAC, phase faults IAC. So what does this mean? So we're out in the hot weather and we're trying to test and we get this error, and more than likely there's probably a customer behind you looking over you to see what the results are from the meter test. So today I hope I can save you a phone call and see if we can get a couple of fixes for you out in the field. Fix number one, if everyone can see that picture, this is the proper way to hook a PowerMaster 7 series or 5 series with a current source capabilities. Make sure the neutral and ground are together on the test switch. And you can see the neutral doesn't have a handle itself, but it's a flat bar there that the neutral and the ground are hooked together. And of course you've got your jumpers, your current jumpers. Okay, so let's move on to step 2. Inspect jumper leads and ensure they're placed on the test switch correctly. And again, we've actually hooked this up. That is the proper way to hook those jumper leads up. You know, they don't stack on top of each other or anything like that, but make sure that it doesn't matter if orange is on top or gray is on top, whatever, but make sure that you are at the very bottom of the test switch, which is the duckbill there. If you can see, the gray is at the bottom, which we actually drive from the black side of the duckbill, going through the gray and up through the orange and through the meter and then back out. So let's move on to step 3. Inspect all wiring going to the meter and test switches. Now, if you get this waveform generator error, the best thing to do is just open all your test switches up. Just make sure everything's tight. Inspect your wiring. Make sure there's nothing loose. Again, make sure your CTs have been shunted and the voltage are open, and then you can actually look behind the meter as well. And step 4. Now this is actually in the PowerMaster itself. Okay, you could get to this screen by selecting Utilities and then User Preferences and then page 3 of 10 in the PowerMaster. And what you want to do is you want to remove that stabilized load box phases. Remove that check by hitting the tab button on the PowerMaster. And what that is doing that is actually removing the fine adjustment. We're going to run the course adjustment, but we're not going to run the fine adjustment. In other words, we're not going to measure that voltage and current. We're just going to drive on that circuit. Okay, so let's move on to step 5. And here's the big thing. If you're using potential transformers, you can actually measure face-to-face, which we're expecting 208. And if that's true, if you do know for sure you've got a PT into the circuitry there, you can actually connect C-phase, which is actually aux neutral, but you can connect it to C-phase. Okay, in step 6, okay, pull duct bills slightly outward, but not all the way out of the test switch. And that's just in case if you're touching the bottom end of, or back end of the test switch itself. So if you can just move those out slightly and then try rerunning the test again. Let's move on to step 7. Okay, step 7, clean test switch and the number 6 ground. And of course, you see the number 6 ground that's connected here to the can. If you've tried with the neutral and ground together on the test switch and you're still having problems, try cleaning that number 6 ground with a wire brush and connect your ground and neutral there and just see what happens. It may work. And step 8, and this is a big one here, is this is actually a broken ground connection on the voltage cables of a 7 or 5 series PowerMaster. And what you want to do is you want to make sure that you can actually, at the tip of that, it's like a little barrel nut. You can remove that barrel nut and inspect those ends to make sure they are soldered good or you haven't broken any wires or anything like that. But I would recommend inspecting your voltage cables for sure. And step 9, this kind of goes with the stabilized load box phases. You could do this at the same time you're in there. In the PowerMaster, again, you go to the Utilities, User Preferences, and the THD stabilization threshold is set at 100 in this picture. So it defaults to 5, so if you want to, you can extend that to 100 and try that. And step 10, ensure measured voltage and drive leads are connected. So I've seen this a lot too, to where the guys try to run drive voltage and current, or current, voltage and current, and they will remove the measured lead. And so once they do that, you will get away from generator error. So we need to see the measured and drive in the same connection. So if you remove that, we will have a problem there. So just make sure you keep them together. Now, all of the steps that I've mentioned here, the first step I would do, I guess I would inspect my test switches, because I have seen a lot to where the test switches are, full of corrosion and all that good stuff. So you may want to clean those and then start the steps that I've went over here in the training. But that's exactly what I would do. Does anybody have any questions?
Yep, we've got a question from Andrew at JEA. He asks, have you noticed this error being caused by 10-plated test switches?
No, I have not seen that. If the test switch is clean, is the test switches corroded or what's going on?
Andrew, I went ahead and unmuted your mic if you want to go ahead and talk to Ray.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah, we have 10-plated test switches that have been serviced for approximately 20 years.
Wow.
And they build up a coating on them. And I've noticed that I've had to pull the duct bills in and out, or take a piece of emery board, clean them up before I can slide those in there. As soon as I change out the test block, works perfectly fine.
Yeah. Were you cleaning the test switch with a emery board? Just slide it in slightly and cleaning it that way where you've got your returns? Is that what you're doing?
Yes, either doing that or a piece of emery cloth on a phenolic insulator.
Yeah. That's a possibility. What I would try, what about your jumpers? Are you using the jumpers that were issued with the PowerMaster, or are you using jumpers that you've made? Because a lot of the guys, they use different jumpers.
Both.
Oh, you are using both. Okay. Well, that's a good question. And everything is tight?
Yes.
Okay. I think what I would possibly do is, how much are you sanding a lot? Are you just sanding the corrosion? Is that what you're doing, or you're not sanding any metal, right?
Correct. Just cleaning the corrosion, basically.
Okay, because that emery cloth, I mean, it's very, very coarse paper.
Well, we'll
What shape is the
use like a 220 or 320. We'll use a
okay,
320 grit.
Okay, okay. So are you cleaning? So I'm assuming that if you're doing this, I tell you what I would possibly do. I would pull the little eyelets, of course, open your test clips and unscrew and inspect the wires that's actually mounted onto the test switch itself. Can you sand there?
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying. Once we clean up the connections, it works good. We just get this error, the waveform generator error, before we, like we go start to try to do the test. We clean everything, and then it works, or we just change the test block, and it works perfectly fine.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this. If that's what you're doing, have you went over any of the steps that I mentioned in the webinar? Like, does it
Yes.
have PTs, huh?
No, most of them do not.
Most of them do not have PTs? Okay. Um, Have you tried going phase to phase? In other words, if it's
No.
12208, if it's 12208, can you try to take your aux power and aux neutral, connect aux neutral to C phase?
Okay, we can try that.
I would try. There's several things I want you to do, and if it takes, I think the best thing for us to do too is once you get out there, give me a phone call, and I can kind of talk you over the phone on what to do. But there's several things that would, if these test switches are really bad corroded, I would try, before I would disconnect any wiring or anything or changing the test switch out, I would try those steps. I would go in there and change the threshold out, change it from a 5 to 100, remove the stabilized load box to where you're only running a coarse adjustment and not a fine adjustment, and make sure when you're driving, do you have a 7332 or 7335?
35.
Okay. So are you using the ANSI test when you're doing this?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Where's your neutral? Are you mounting your neutral and ground at the same point?
Typically, we'll do that instead of hooking onto the tab. We strip out our neutral wire and go to the ground lug. So we'll hook on directly to the ground itself because it's a common wire.
Yeah. I would just make sure that my neutral and ground are relatively close together, and try running the test again. Is it a certain
Okay.
is it a certain form that you're having trouble with, like a 9S, 5S, 6S?
No, it's just typically the tin-plated 20 to 30-year-old test blocks.
Okay. And so after you
It's almost like, how
do what? I'm sorry.
it's almost like, when aluminum starts to corrode
Yeah.
It gets that, like, the separation of the material. So
Okay.
I was just curious if you had other utilities that had that problem. Okay.
No, I have not heard of that one. That's actually a new one there on me.
Well, let's ask
What
the
about this?
audience. Ray, let's ask
Huh?
everybody in the audience, how many folks have encountered these 10-plated test sites? If you have encountered one of those, then click the raise your hand button.
I don't see any.
So we either put everybody to sleep or not very many people are experiencing these 10-plated test sites. So that it may be you. Where are you, Andrew? What part of the country?
Jacksonville, East Coast, right
Okay.
along the ocean.
Yeah. Um, I tell you what, the next time you get to one of these sites, if you can give me a call and we can kind of go over
Yes.
and see if we can't. But I'd rather you not, disconnect anything or anything like that. I'd rather, try to see if we can't test it as is. You may need to clean
Okay.
the returns, but and if you're using, and you said you're not using our jumpers, or you're using some jumpers that you made up with an alligator clip, because a lot of guys tend to make their own jumpers.
Typically, I'll try yours first, and then I'll go to another set. I'll try different
Okay.
things, and finally, to get it work.
Okay, let me ask you this. Does this test switch, does it have a eyelet on it, or does it have to where it just curls down? It just has like the little tips on it.
Most of them just curl down.
Ooh, okay. Well, then that's why. Then more than likely, you're probably not getting a good connection there. That's what I'm thinking. The little eyelets,
Yeah.
they have, Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was listening.
Okay. And let me ask you this. Does it have the little bar to where you unscrew and to separate the plates for the returns or for the polarity? I'm sorry.
Does it have a bar to separate it?
Well, yeah. Does it, in other words, when you what you would do is you would unscrew the little screws and it pulls the plates apart, and then you open the return and you slide your duct build in. Does it have that type of, is it that type of test switch?
No. But I'll call you the next one I encounter. I'll call you.
Yeah. Yeah, and take as many pictures, take a bunch of pictures for me so I can look at it.
Now,
I'll do that.
we are getting some feedback from Derek. He's in Sumter County, Florida. He says that they have some of those 10-plated sites, but he doesn't remember any of them being much of a problem. And we've also got some feedback from Arnold in Leesburg, I assume Virginia. And he says that they have all copper and brass test switches. Excellent. Thank you guys for, Leesburg, Florida, sorry.
Yeah, yes, sir.
Thank you for that feedback, guys.
Is
So do we
there
have any other questions? A couple of questions, one from Derek, and Craig is raising his hand. So before we bolt out of here, we'll answer those right quick. The webinar is actually being recorded today, and when we get done and get it processed, we're going to put it up on the website. So yes, you'll be getting an email that says how to access the video. And Craig has his hand raised, so let me unmute your mic and see what you've got to say. Craig, go ahead.
Yeah, on our pre-test status check, we're getting an error that says analyzer error or analyzer.exe error. A native exception has occurred in the analyzer exe. Select quit and then restart the program, or select details for more information. And we are getting that quite a bit.
Okay, Craig, I think the problem is you're turning your aux power on right when you're to start your phantom load test. So if you would turn your aux power on before, in other words, while you're hooking up, turn aux power on and then start your test. I think that will take care of that problem. That is actually a firmware bug.
Well, it doesn't look like we have any more questions, and so I want to thank you for joining us today, and make sure you check your email boxes for an invitation to next month's Ask Ray webinar, where we plan to talk about CT benchtop testing. And also remember that we're on Twitter, LinkedIn, and Facebook. And the best part is we've got a YouTube channel packed with videos that have all kinds of training opportunities for free. Head over there, subscribe to the channel so you can get updates when we load new videos. And finally, remember that Ray loves feedback. Complete the survey that's about to pop up on your screen.